That morning, no one expected a single act of defiance to change military history. What began as routine training became a moment every soldier on base would remember, and one that would test the difference between following orders and doing what's right. The wind off the Pacific cut through the early dawn fog at Coronado Naval Base, carrying the salt of the sea and the faint, metallic tang of gun oil. Lieutenant Elena Vasquez stood at attention in the formation, her boots planted firm on the dew-slicked asphalt of the training yard. The platoon, 20 SEALs, all men except for her, formed 3 ranks deep, shoulders squared under the weight of their rucksacks. At her side, Rex, her Belgian Malinois K9 partner, sat rigid, his black eyes scanning the horizon, ears pricked forward. The dog's harness gleamed under the floodlights, a silent testament to the hours of conditioning that bound them. Elena's hand rested lightly on his head, a subtle anchor in the ritual of muster. "Platoon! Attention!" The command echoed from Master Chief Harlan, a grizzled veteran with 20 years in the teams. His voice was gravel over steel, honed by countless briefings. The formation snapped tighter, heels clicking in unison. Elena felt the familiar pull in her shoulders, the discipline that had carried her through Bud S, the infamous Hell Week where she'd been the only woman to ring the bell on day 4 and keep going. Now, 5 years later, she was one of the few female SEAL officers, her ribbons a quiet map of deployments in the Sandbox and the Hindu Kush. Rex shifted his weight, sensing her steadiness, his breath warm against her leg. The morning brief was standard. PT run, followed by tactical drills, then weapons calls on the range. Harlan paced the front, his gaze sweeping the ranks like a sniper's scope. "Vasquez, your team's on point for the breach sim. Rex leads the sniff. Keep it clean. No deviations." Elena nodded sharply, her "Aye, Chief," blending with the chorus. Loyalty to the unit was the air they breathed. It was why she returned year after year, even to this bench on the edge of base where she'd sit in winter, watching the waves crash against the pier. Rex curled at her feet. That bench had become her ritual, a place to decompress after ops, to remember the faces left behind. But today, the routine felt heavier, the fog clinging like unspoken doubts. They moved out at double time, boots pounding the path toward the mock village setup. The air hummed with the low chatter of radios clipped to vests, static bursts punctuating the rhythm. Elena's team, 3 operators, all seasoned, flanked her, their nods brief but loaded with the trust earned in fire. Rex trotted ahead, nose to the ground, his paws silent on the gravel. He was more than a dog. He was her extension, trained to detect explosives, track insurgents, even sense the subtle shift in a handler's adrenaline. In the field, that bond had saved lives, hers included. When Rex had pulled her from a collapsed structure in Kandahar, his jaws clamped on her sleeve amid the dust and shouts. The breach sim began at 0600 sharp. The plywood structures loomed under the lifting fog, simulating a hostile compound. "Entry team, stack up," Elena ordered, her voice level, professional. She signaled Rex forward. He froze at the door, tail low, inhaling deeply. A faint whine escaped him, not fear but alert, explosives or something mimicking them. Her team breached clean, flashbang popped, door splintered, and they flowed in low and fast. But midway through the clear, Harlan's voice crackled over the comms. "Vasquez, abort the K9, double back, standard sweep only." She paused in the shadowed hallway, flashlight beam cutting the dimness. Rex pressed against her calf, ready. Abort the K9? It didn't track. Rex's protocols were ironclad for detection. "Chief, Rex has a hit. Confirming now." Static hissed back. "Negative, Lieutenant. Orders are orders. Pull him." The team froze behind her, waiting. Eleanor's pulse ticked up, not from the sim, but from the edge in Harlan's tone. He'd been vocal about integrating females fully, subtle digs in briefings, questions about distractions like a dog in the mix. Was this a test or something more? She knelt briefly, hand on Rex's flank, feeling the steady rise and fall of his ribs. The dog's eyes met hers, unwavering. Obedience was the sealed creed, but so was adaptability, doing what it took to get the job done right. "Team, hold position," she murmured, then keyed her mic. "Chief, with respect, Rex clears this. Proceeding." The line went silent, but she moved forward, Rex leading into the next room. His nose quivered at a mock IED tucked in the corner. Props, but real enough in training. The team extracted it flawlessly, the sim ending with a clean all clear. Back at formation, the debrief was tense. Harlan's face was stone as he reviewed the tape on the portable screen. "You disobeyed a direct order, Vasquez. Explain." The platoon stood silent, eyes forward, but Elena felt their weight. "Sir, the protocol prioritizes detection." Rex confirmed the threat. Aborting risked the sim's integrity. Harlan's jaw tightened. "Protocol's one thing, chain of command's another. You're on report." As the formation broke, Elena led Rex toward the perimeter path, the winter chill already seeping through her camis, despite the California sun breaking through. The bench waited at the end, weathered wood facing the grey Pacific. She sat, Rex settling beside her, his head on her knee. The bass buzzed faintly, choppers thumping in the distance, orders barked across the yard. But here, in this quiet pocket, she allowed the tremor in her hand, tracing the edges of her sealed trident pin. Defiance in training was one thing. In the real world, it could unravel everything. Little did she know, this moment was the first crack in a foundation that would force her to choose between the uniform and the truth it demanded. Word of the incident spread like fog rolling in, whispers in the chow hall, sidelong glances during quals. Elena kept her focus, running drills with Rex until his paws were raw on the sand. But the report loomed, a shadow over her evals. Winters came harsh on the coast, winds whipping off the water, and she'd return to that bench each year, medal cases unopened in her locker, reminders of commendations earned but rarely worn. Loyalty to Rex, to the team, it was her anchor. Yet, as the investigation brief was called, she sensed the ripples, not just her career, but the quiet codes of the teams tested under scrutiny. The tribunal room was stark, fluorescent hum, underscoring the wooden table where Harlan sat with the XO. Eleanor stood at ease, Rex waiting outside the door, his low whine audible through the panel. "Lieutenant, your actions compromise discipline," the XO stated, voice even, but the sim was flawless. "Walk us through it." She did, detailing every command, every alert from Rex. Harlan leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "You chose the dog over orders. Why?" Elena met his gaze. "Because orders protect lives, sir. Rex is part of that." The room fell quiet, the weight of tradition pressing in. Outside, Rex pawed at the door, sensing the tension. Elena's choice hung there, small in the moment, seismic in its echo. As she left, the base felt smaller, the bench calling like a confessional. Winters would test her resolve, but this was just the beginning. The days following the tribunal blurred into the relentless cadence of base life, each reveille pulling Elena back into the grind. The report against her lingered like salt spray on skin, formal, unyielding, a mark on her file that could stall promotions or worse, bench her from ops. She rose before dawn, as always, the cool tile of her barracks floor grounding her as she laced her boots. Rex stirred in his kennel across the room, a soft huff escaping him, his presence a steady rhythm in the quiet. She clipped his leash, and they stepped out into the pre-light chill, the Pacific's breath carrying hints of kelp and diesel from the pier. Morning PT was unforgiving. Ocean swims in 40-degree water, fins cutting through swells that slapped against her like reprimands. Elena powered through, her strokes measured, ignoring the burn in her shoulders. The other SEALs kept their distance at first, subtle, professional, but by the pull-up bars, whispers turned to nods. "Heard you stuck to your guns," murmured Petty Officer Reyes, her teammate from the breach sim, as they hung from the bars, muscles straining. Rex called it right. Elena dropped to the sand, wiping brine from her eyes. "Just doing the job, Reyes." No more needed saying. In the team's, action spoke, and hers had rippled outward. Harlan's scrutiny intensified. During weapons quals on the range, the crack of M4 fire echoed off the dunes, brass casings warm underfoot. Elena zeroed her rifle with precision, Rex at heel, his ears flicking at each report. But when Harlan called her forward for a demo on K9 integration, his tone carried an edge. "Show the platoon how it's done, Lieutenant. No improvising this time." She nodded, signaling Rex to a buried SIM cache of mock narcotics. He worked the grid methodically, pawing at the spot, tail wagging once in confirmation. The platoon watched, silent, the wind tugging at their boonie hats. Harlan grunted approval, but pulled her aside after. "That report's not buried yet. Keep it by the book, or it'll bury you." The base's rhythm pressed on, briefings in the ops center, where maps glowed under red lights and coffee steamed in mugs etched with unit crests. Elena reviewed after-action reports, her pen scratching notes on threat assessments. Rex lay under the table, his flank warm against her boot, a reminder of the bond that had landed her here. He'd been her partner since puppyhood, raised through the grueling program at Lackland, where handlers learned to read the subtlest cues, a flattened ear for unease, a stiff tail for certainty. In deployments, that trust had been forged in dust-choked alleys, Rex alerting to ambushes before the air thickened with tension. But now, stateside, the stakes felt personal, the chain of command a tighter leash. Winter crept in early that year, the coastal fog thickening to a shroud that muffled the thump of Blackhawks lifting off from the helipad. Elena's ritual called her to the bench after evening chow, the weathered planks cold through her sweatpants. Rex settled at her feet, his fur damp from a training rinse, the faint scent of wet earth rising from him. She stared at the waves, grey and relentless, crashing against the concrete seawall below. The bench had been her anchor since her first winter post-Bud S. A place to unpack the weight of missions, the faces of locals helped or lost, the orders that chafed against her gut. Medals gathered dust in her locker, a bronze star for that Kandahar pullout, a Navy commendation for intel Rex had sniffed out in Raqqa. She rarely wore them. They felt like borrowed glory, not her own. That evening, as the sun dipped low, painting the horizon in bruised purples, a junior enlisted, Petty Officer Lang, fresh from boot, approached hesitantly, his utilities crisp. "Ma'am, Lieutenant Vasquez?" He saluted awkwardly, eyes darting to Rex. Elena returned it, standing. "At ease, Petty Officer. What's on your mind?" Lang shifted, pulling a folded paper from his pocket. "It's about the tribunal, some of us. We talked. Your call on Rex. It wasn't just the sim. Harlan's been pushing back on K9 protocols for women handlers, says it complicates the line." Eleanor's jaw tightened, the words landing like a poorly aimed round. She'd heard the undercurrents, doubts about integration, veiled in concerns over unit cohesion. But hearing it voiced stung, a crack in the facade of equality she'd fought for. She took the paper, a petition, unsigned but listing a dozen names from her platoon. "We back you, Ma'am. Rex is gold. If orders blind us to that, what's the point?" Lang's voice was low, earnest, the wind whipping his words. Elena folded it carefully, her fingers steady despite the chill seeping into her bones. "Appreciate the support, Lang, but this stays internal, no waves." He nodded and retreated, footsteps fading into the dusk. Rex whined softly, nudging her hand, his nose cold and insistent. She scratched behind his ears, feeling the rapid pulse beneath the fur, the dog's way of mirroring her unrest. Back in barracks, the petition burned in her mind as she reviewed it under the desk lamp. Names she trusted, Reyes, Lang, even a couple from Harlan's own team. It was loyalty, raw and unpolished, the kind that bound seals tighter than oaths. But acting on it meant escalation, bypassing the chain, risking fractures in the unit. Duty demanded obedience, morality whispered otherwise. She clipped Rex's leash for a night walk, the base lights casting long shadows on the paths. The air hummed with distant generators, the occasional bark from the kennels echoing her thoughts. By week's end, the XO summoned her again, this time to the commander's office overlooking the bay. The room smelled of polished oak and old leather, awards gleaming on the walls. Commander Ellis, a lanky officer with salt-and-pepper hair, gestured her to a chair. Harlan stood by the window, arms crossed. "Vasquez, we've reviewed the tape and statements. Your instincts were sound, but procedure matters." Ellis slid a folder across the desk. "The report's amended, no formal reprimand, but we're auditing K9 protocols. Your input's required." Harlan's eyes flicked to her, a mix of concession and warning. "Don't make this a habit, Lieutenant." She left with a salute, the weight lifting slightly, but the audit loomed, a deeper probe into integration, into her role. Outside, Rex waited, tail thumping against the tile. As winter deepened, the bench became her sounding board, the petition hidden in her ruck. The child in the title shadow felt distant, but the ripples were building, testing the edges of her resolve. Each return to that spot etched the dilemma deeper. Loyalty to Rex, to the team, or to a system slow to bend. The Pacific roared on, indifferent. As Elena pondered the cost of the next stand, the audit began under the low hum of the conference room's projector, its beams slicing through the dim light like a knife through fog. Elena arrived early as protocol demanded, her folder tucked under one arm, Rex's lead in the other. The space overlooked the training fields, where distant figures drilled in the winter haze, their shouts muffled by the salt-laced wind rattling the windows. She settled Rex in the corner, his paws clicking softly on the linoleum, before taking her seat at the scarred oak table. The air carried the faint scent of stale coffee and dry erase markers, remnants of overnight sessions by the review board. Commander Ellis presided, his notes stacked neatly, flanked by a civilian consultant from Naval Special Warfare Command, Dr. Harlan's counterpart in protocol, a sharp-eyed woman named Dr. Reyes, no relation to her teammate. Master Chief Harlan sat across, his posture rigid, fingers drumming a silent cadence on the armrest. Two other officers rounded out the panel, a logistics lieutenant and the base's K9 coordinator, both observing with the neutral expressions honed from years of impartial reviews. "Lieutenant Vasquez," Ellis opened, voice steady as a metronome. "We're here to dissect the integration of K9 assets in mixed-gender teams. Your incident provides the baseline. Walk us through the breach sim again, every variable." Elena nodded, her voice level, recounting the sequence. The fog-shrouded approach, Rex's initial alert at the threshold, the comms exchange with Harlan. She detailed the mock IED's placement, the team's extraction, emphasizing how aborting Rex would have bypassed standard detection layers. "The protocol, sir, is designed for redundancy. Rex's hit confirmed what visuals missed." She projected the sim footage, the grainy feed showing Rex's precise paw at the corner, the team's fluid response. The room watched in silence, the only sound the fans were and Rex's occasional shift, his nose twitching toward the door. Harlan interjected midway, leaning forward. "With respect, Lieutenant, the order was tactical, simplifying the op for efficiency. K9s add variables, handler distraction, Response lag. In a real breach, seconds count. His tone was measured, professional, but Elena caught the undercurrent, the same skepticism that had simmered in briefings. Dr. Reyes noted it on her pad, her pen scratching like sand on boots. Efficiency versus efficacy, she clarified. Data shows female handlers with K9s have a 12% higher detection rate in controlled tests. But chain of command breaches erode trust. How do we balance that? The question hung, forcing Elena to weigh her words. Duty pulled one way, affirm the hierarchy, let the audit slide toward minor tweaks. Conscience tugged the other. Advocate for Rex's role, for the women like her who'd clawed into the teams. Sir, she addressed Ellis directly, the lag is mitigated by training. Rex and I operate as one unit. Aborting him that day risked false negatives, same as in theatre. Rex lifted his head at her voice, eyes locking on hers, a subtle reinforcement in the sterile room. The coordinator nodded faintly. He'd seen the bond in action during Quolls. As the session dragged into hours, the panel delved deeper, hypotheticals on deployments, where cultural barriers in host nations amplified doubts about female operators. Harlan cited a redacted after-action from Syria, where a K9 alert had delayed entry, nearly compromising cover. Animals don't salute, Chief, Elena countered evenly. They detect. In Raqqa, Rex's nose got us eyes on a cache before it blew. The room tensed, the civilian consultant's brow furrowing at the classified slip, unintentional but pointed. Ellis cleared his throat. Noted. We'll reconvene tomorrow with full metrics. Dismissed, Elena clipped Rex's lead, stepping into the corridor where winter light filtered through frosted panes. The base felt heavier now, the audit's probe exposing fissures she'd long ignored. Whispers had evolved into quiet alliances, Reyes slipping her a thumb drive of handler stats during chow, Lang organizing informal drills to showcase K9 precision. But Harlan's gaze followed her from the doorway, a silent warning etched in his stance. That afternoon, she led a routine patrol sim along the perimeter fence, the chain link rattling in the gusts off the bay. Rex ranged ahead, his harness taut, sniffing the salt-crusted earth for simulated breaches. The team, Reyes, Lang, and two others, moved in loose formation, rifles slung low. "Eyes sharp!" Elena called, her breath visible in the chill. The wind carried the distant crash of waves, a rhythmic underscore to their steps. Midway, Rex froze at a mock intrusion point, barking once, sharp, insistent. She signaled halt. Kneeling to confirm, a planted decoy explosive, part of the drill. But as they cleared it, Harlan appeared on the ridge above, binoculars in hand, observing unannounced. "Vasquez," his voice boomed over the radio. "Report to ops, now." The team exchanged glances, but she waved them on. "Finish the sweep. I'll catch up." Rex whined, pressing close as they jogged toward the low-slung building, its concrete walls beaded with condensation. Inside, the ops center buzzed, screens flickering with sat feeds, operators murmuring coordinates. Harlan waited by the duty desk, a fresh report in hand. "Your petition circulated," he said flatly. No preamble. "Lang's doing?" Elena's pulse steadied. Denial would fracture trust. "It's support, Chief, for protocols, not against you." He slid the paper across, her copy, annotated with concerns, unit cohesion, perceived favoritism toward K9 elements. "This isn't defiance, Lieutenant, it's division. The audit's fragile. Push too hard, and it backfires on all of us." His eyes held hers. Not hostile, but weary, the weight of command showing in the lines around them. For a moment, the room's hum faded, leaving only the crackle of the main radio, relaying weather updates from the Pacific. She took the annotated sheet, folding it into her pocket. "Understood, sir. But Rex isn't a variable. He's precision." Harlan exhaled, turning to the window where the horizon blurred into grey. Prove it in the audit, quietly. As she left, Rex at heel, the base's pulse resumed. A helo's rotors chopping the air, boots thudding on paths slick with mist. Evening found her at the bench again, the wood slick under her palms, Rex's warmth a bulwark against the deepening cold. The petition weighed heavier now, its name's a map of loyalties tested. Waves rolled in, foam hissing on the rocks below, mirroring the internal churn. She'd chosen this life for the clarity of mission, the bond with Rex that cut through chaos. But the audit demanded more, not just obedience, but testimony to the unseen costs of integration, the subtle erosions of doubt, the quiet fights for space in the ranks. A figure approached through the dusk. A child, no more than 10, bundled in a parka too large, clutching a small box. Base kids often wandered the edges, drawn by the uniforms and dogs. But this one hesitated at the path's end. "Ma'am?" His voice was small, tentative. Elena straightened, Rex alert but calm. "Yes?" The boy extended the box, eyes wide. "My dad said, for the dog lady, he served with you." Inside gleamed a medal, not hers, but a replica etched with a paw print and trident. A token from a vet, perhaps Reyes's kin, passed through the network of support. She accepted it, the metal cool against her fingers, Rex sniffing curiously. "Tell your dad thanks," she said softly. The boy nodded and scampered off, vanishing into the twilight. Alone again, Eleanor traced the engraving, the winter wind whispering of legacies unspoken. The audit loomed, but this small act anchored her, reminding that integrity rippled beyond reports, touching even the youngest witnesses. As night fell, the bench held her resolve, the Pacific's roar a vow against the gathering storm. The audit's second day dawned with a relentless drizzle, the kind that turned Coronado's paths to slick mud and seeped into every seam of the utilities. Elena rose at 0445, the barracks clock's digital glow cutting the dark like a suppressed muzzle flash. She moved methodically, boots laced, ruck packed with metrics on K9 deployments, Rex's training logs dog-eared from nights of review. The dog stirred as she unlatched his kennel, his tail thumping once against the grated floor, a quiet affirmation before the fray. Outside, the air hung heavy with petrichor and ocean brine, the base's floodlights haloing the mist as they jogged the perimeter, paws and boots sinking in the wet hush. By 0700, the conference room had filled again, steam rising from fresh brews in insulated mugs, the scent mingling with the damp wool of wool coats shrugged off at the door. Commander Ellis called the session to order, his gavel a sharp rap on the table that echoed like a chambered round. Dr. Reyes projected updated slides, graphs spiking on detection rates, side-by-side comparisons of human sweeps versus K9-assisted ops. Harlan sat straighter today, his notes annotated with counterpoints from legacy protocols, the kind drilled into the teams since Vietnam. Elena positioned Rex at her side, his harness clipped short, allowing him to lie alert but unobtrusive. The dog's presence drew glances, not hostile, but probing, as if measuring the very variable under scrutiny. "Lieutenant," Ellis directed, "address the panel on real-world applications. How does K9 integration hold under fire, particularly for female handlers?" Elena stood, her voice steady, threading through the room's tension like a well-placed infill. She cited declassified excerpts. A 2018 op in the Helmand province, where Rex had vectored her team to a hidden weapons cache, averting an ambush that could have claimed half the squad. "The bond isn't distraction, sir. It's multiplier. In mixed teams, it levels variables. My profile draws less initial fire in recon. Rex confirms threats without exposure." She cued a redacted video, the feed showing grainy night vision of Rex's low crawl through rubble, his alert pulling her from a blind corner. The panel leaned in, the projector's hum the only underscore. Harlan cleared his throat, interposing. Impressive on paper, Vasquez. But in theater, handlers split focus, especially with integration pressures. A dog slows exfil if injured. His words landed, measured, backed by a slide of his own, stats on op delays attributed to non-standard assets. Dr. Reyes interjected, her tone clinical. Data contradicts that, Chief. Female K9 pairs show 8% faster clears in urban sims. The question is enforcement. When does discretion become insubordination? The room stilled, eyes shifting to Eleanor. Rex sensed it, his ears flicking forward. A low rumble vibrating through his chest against her boot. She met Harlan's gaze evenly. Discretion saves lives when protocols align with reality, ma'am. That sim order, aborting Rex, ignored the threat matrix. I'd do it again. The admission hung, seismic in its simplicity. Ellis's pen paused mid-note, the coordinator shifting in his seat. Harlan's jaw set, but he nodded curtly. Noted. But the chain bends for no one. The session broke for recess, voices murmuring as Eleanor led Rex out, the corridor's fluorescent buzz amplifying the echo of her words. Outside, the drizzle had eased to a fine mist, beading on the windows like unspoken doubts. Word of the exchange leaked faster than fog off the bay, first in the galley, where Reyes slid her a tray with extra rations, his eyes saying what protocol silenced. Panels divided, Harlan's pushing for restrictions on K9 assignments to women. Eleanor forked her MRE, the synthetic beef steaming faintly. Then we show them otherwise. Schedule a demo, full team, no holds. By afternoon quolls, the range thrummed with activity, targets popping under controlled bursts, the sharp tang of cordite cutting the damp air. Elena's unit assembled unbidden, Lang at point, with a mock cache buried in the dunes. Rex worked the grid, nose quartered to the wind, unearthing the sim device in under 2 minutes. Observers from the audit, 2 junior officers, watched from the berm, clipboards in hand, the wind tugging at their notes. Harlan arrived midway, his truck's tires crunching gravel. But he held back, arms folded, as the team debriefed on site. Clean integration, Lang reported, voice crisp. No lag. Elena nodded, wiping sand from Rex's paws, the grains gritty under her nails. The dog's tongue lolled briefly, a rare lapse in his discipline, mirroring the subtle thaw in the air. But as the sun broke through, casting long shadows across the brass-strewn sand, a base-wide alert crackled over the PA. All hands to muster. Incident report on K9 protocols. Mandatory brief. The formation gathered in the yard, 200 SEALs and support under the dripping eaves of the hangar, boots scuffing wet concrete. XO addressed them, voice amplified but grave. An audit's underway. Rumors of division undermine us. Loyalty to the teams means unity. Question orders through channels, not defiance. Eyes flicked to Elena, standing front rank with Rex at heel, his harness gleaming wet. Harlan flanked the XO, his presence a bulwark, but the whispers had crested. Her petition now circulated beyond the platoon, names added in quiet solidarity during night watches. Post-brief, the public reckoning ignited in the Op Center's annex, a spillover room where the audit panel reconvened ad hoc. Dr. Reyes laid out the petition on the table, its pages fanned like a hand of cards. This has gone viral internally. 50 signatures now, citing Vasquez's sim as precedent for reform. Ellis's face tightened. Who's leading this? Harlan stepped forward, voice low. It starts with one act, sir, but it risks fractures. Elena, summoned abruptly, entered with Rex, the door clicking shut behind like a safed weapon. The petition's mine to answer, she stated, no preamble. It's not rebellion, it's evidence. K9s like Rex aren't optional, they're doctrine. The panel absorbed it, the room's air thickening with the weight of witnesses, the coordinator nodding, Dr. Reyes tapping her pen. Harlan exhaled sharply. "You're forcing a vote, Lieutenant. Full review of female assignments." Outside, the muster dispersed, but the ripples spread. Medics in the clinic murmuring support. Handlers in the kennels prepping demos unasked. Elena clipped Rex's lead, stepping into the fading light, the mist curling around the hangar like smoke from a suppressed shot. The bench called from afar, but duty pulled her to the helipad, where a routine extraction drill awaited, now laced with eyes. As twilight settled, the base's hum shifted, generators thrumming lower, the distant bark of other K9s echoing hers. The child's medal weighed in her pocket, a talisman against the scrutiny. Integrity's cost sharpened here, in the glare of the chain. Loyalty to Rex clashing with the institution's slow grind. Waves crashed audible even inland, a reminder that tides turned, but only after the storm broke. Elena scratched Rex's ear, his warmth steady as the first stars pierced the clearing sky. The audit pressed on, but her stand had lit the fuse, consequences uncoiling like a patrol in the dark. The night deepened over Coronado, the base's floodlights carving sharp edges from the mist-shrouded hangars, their sodium glow reflecting off puddles like scattered brass. Elena led Rex back from the helipad, the extraction drill's adrenaline still humming in her veins, a low counterpoint to the audit's mounting pressure. Her boots splashed softly on the concrete paths, Rex's paws padding in sync, his harness jingling faintly with each step. The air carried the sharp bite of eucalyptus from the perimeter trees, mingled with the ever-present salt of the Pacific, now a dark expanse beyond the fence. She paused at a junction, keying her radio for the all-clear. "Vasquez to ops. Drill complete. No anomalies." Static crackled back. "Copy. Debrief at 600. Barracks felt like a sanctuary by 2200, the door clicking shut behind her with the finality of a magazine lock. Elena unclipped Rex's lead, watching as he circled his kennel twice before settling, his flanks rising and falling in the dim light from the wall sconce. She shed her wet utilities, hanging them on the rack where they dripped steadily onto the tile, the sound a rhythmic underscore to her thoughts. The annotated petition lay on her bunk, its edges curled from her pocket, a tangible weight amid the sparse room, folded flags in the locker, a single photo of her buds class taped above the desk, faces blurred by time and salt. She sat on the edge of the mattress, rubbing the chill from her hands, the child's medal box open beside her. The replica trident caught the light, its paw print engraving a quiet emblem of the support threading through the ranks. Sleep came fitfully, fractured by dreams of breaches, Rex alerting in shadowed rooms, Harlan's voice echoing over comms like a jammed frequency. Reveille jarred her at 4:30, the blare cutting through the fog of half-rest. She rose, muscles protesting the night's damp, and geared up, fresh camis crisp against her skin, the fabric's starch a faint chemical scent in the close air. Rex was already at the door, ears perked, sensing the day's undercurrent. They joined the pre-dawn formation in the yard, the platoon assembling under the grey vault of sky, breaths visible in the chill. Harlan's brief was terse. "Audit reconvenes at 0800. Vasquez, your lead on K9 testimony. Keep it factual, no embellishments." She saluted her eye chief, blending with the shuffle of boots, the group dispersing to PT with the precision of a well-oiled mechanism. The ocean's swim tested her resolve, waves rolling in cold and unforgiving, the water closing over her head like a tactical blackout. Elena stroked through the swells, fins propelling her against the current. Rex waiting on the beach with a handler stand-in, his bark carrying over the roar when she surfaced for air. Back on sand, she shook brine from her hair, the grains gritty between her toes, and caught Reyes's eye during the run-back. "Panel's calling witnesses today," he murmured, pace steady on the trail. "Lang's up first, says you cleared his quals last winter." Elena nodded, lungs burning from the incline. "Just protocol." But the words felt hollow. The audit had woven their routines into a web of scrutiny, every drill a potential exhibit. By 0800, the conference room thrummed with restrained energy, chairs scraping as the panel settled. Ellis opened with a nod to the expanded roster. 3 additional officers from Nesta Dulles, clipboards at ready, their uniforms starched to razor edges. Dr. Reyes synced the projector, its fan whirring to life, casting blue light across the walls etched with faded unit insignias. Harlan positioned himself at the end, arms crossed, the faint scent of his aftershave cutting the room's staleness. Elena entered last, Rex at heel, the door sealing with a pneumatic hiss. "Proceed with testimony," Ellis directed, his voice even like a range command. Lang took the stand first, sworn in with a hand on the Bible, his posture ramrod straight. "Petty Officer 3rd Class Lang, ma'am, sir." On the sim day, Lieutenant Vasquez's call with Rex integrated seamless. No delay, detection boosted our clear by 30 seconds. He detailed the breach sequence, gestures minimal, eyes forward. The panel noted it, pens scratching, but Harlan leaned in. "And the disobedience? Did that set precedent for bypassing orders?" Lang hesitated, then met the gaze. "Sir, it highlighted protocol gaps. Rex isn't a wild card. He's trained asset." Elena watched from her seat, Rex's head on her knee, his warmth a steady pulse against the room's chill. Her turn came mid-morning, the clock's tick amplifying the quiet as she stood. "Lieutenant Vasquez, elaborate on the human K9 dynamic in high-stress ops." Ellis's prompt was neutral, but the underlay was clear. "Prove the bond's worth without fracturing command." Elena drew a breath, the air tasting of recycled vent and ink. "In theater, Rex operates on cues beyond verbal, heart rate, scent shifts. During the 2019 Helmand patrol, he alerted to an IED cluster before visuals confirmed, pulling the team from exposure. For female handlers, it amplifies stealth, less footprint in recon, higher trust in mixed elements. She cued metrics on screen, charts of alert accuracy, deployment logs redacted but telling. Rex shifted at her signal, demonstrating a basic sit alert, his obedience a living counter to Harlan's slides on operational drag. Harlan countered post-testimony, his voice gravel steady. "Impeccable on demo, Lieutenant, but scale it. A wounded K9 in exfil, handler compromised. Integration demands uniformity, not exceptions." The debate looped, voices measured. The panel's questions probing like a post-op debrief, efficacy versus hierarchy, data clashing with doctrine. Dr. Reyes mediated, her notes piling. "The petition underscores this, 50-plus voices for reform, but implementation requires consensus." Ellis adjourned at noon, the gavel's rap echoing as chairs pushed back, the room emptying into the corridor's fluorescent glare. Lunch in the galley was subdued, the clatter of trays and murmur of chow lines, a buffer against the morning's intensity. Elena forked field rations, chicken stew, steam rising in curls, while Rex waited outside, his silhouette visible through the glass. Reyes joined her table uninvited, sliding in with a tray of his own. Harlan's pitching restrictions, K9's optional for women leads. His words were low, cutlery scraping plate. Elena chewed methodically, the flavors bland. "Then the demo tomorrow seals it, full breach witnesses." Lang overheard from adjacent, nodding once before moving on, the silent pact thickening the air like fog. Afternoon quals shifted to the mock village under clearing skies, the sun breaking through to warm the plywood facades, casting shadows that danced like fleeting threats. Elena's team stacked at the entry, rifles cleared and safed, Rex leading the sniff. "Breach on my mark," she ordered, voice crisp over the wind-rustling canvas awnings. The flashbang popped, door gave way, and they flowed in, low, methodical, Rex's nose quartered to corners. He alerted at the far wall, paw scraping the prop IED free, the team extracting it in under 90 seconds. Audit observers clocked it from the catwalk, stopwatches clicking, Harlan among them, his silhouette unmoving. Post-drill, as the sun dipped toward the horizon, painting the dunes in ochre, Harlan approached on the gravel path. "Solid run, Vasquez, but the petition's escalating. XO's briefing command tonight." His tone held no malice, just the wear of command's grind, eyes flicking to Rex. "You're stirring reform, intentional or not." Elena holstered her sidearm, the leather creak punctuating her response. "It's evidence, Chief, for the teams." He nodded, turning away, boots crunching toward the ops building, leaving the air charged with unspoken concessions. Evening drew her to the bench as dusk settled. The wood still damp from the drizzle, waves crashing below in a steady cadence. Rex curled at her feet, his fur drying in the fading light, the faint musk of sand and sea rising from him. The child's medal rested in her palm, thumb tracing its edges, a symbol now amplified by the day's testimonies, the growing chorus of support. Whispers from the galley echoed in her mind. Medics prepping affidavits, handlers logging extra hours to bolster stats. The audit teetered, her defiance a pivot point, rippling toward institutional shifts. Stars emerged overhead, sharp against the velvet sky, as the base quieted. Generators humming low, a distant helo's thump fading into night. Loyalty's test deepened here, in the silence between orders. The Pacific's roar, underscoring the fragile line between duty and the truth it demanded. The audit's third day broke with a clarity that belied the storm brewing within the base's confines, the winter sun slicing through high clouds to gild the dew on the training fields. Elena rose at her customary hour, the barracks clock's soft beep pulling her from a shallow sleep. Rex's watchful eyes already fixed on her from his kennel. She moved with the quiet efficiency of routine. Utilities donned, the fabric whispering against her skin, boots laced tight against the chill seeping from the concrete floor. A quick leash clip, and they slipped into the pre-dawn hush, the path crunching faintly underfoot as they circled the perimeter. The Pacific's distant murmur, a steady companion. Rex's nose worked the air, alert to the subtle shifts, diesel from the fuel depot, brine off the waves, his presence a grounding force amid the audit's escalating scrutiny. By 0700, the conference room pulsed with the low thrum of anticipation, chairs arranged in a tighter semicircle, the table laden with fresh printouts and steaming thermoses. Commander Ellis entered first, his stride measured, followed by the expanded panel, Dr. Reyes with her tablet glowing, the K-9 coordinator thumbing through logs, and two NS Dulles colonels flown in overnight, their briefcases snapping open like safed breeches. Harlan took his seat last, his face etched with the night's deliberations. The faint lines around his eyes deepened by the base's all-night briefings. Elena positioned Rex in the corner, his harness secured to a ring bolted low before claiming her spot. The air held the crisp edge of eucalyptus from an open vent, undercut by the sharp tang of marker ink from the whiteboard scrawled with flowcharts. Ellis rapped the table once, calling order. Final testimony phase. Vasquez, the petition's at 70 signatures. Handlers, operators, even admin. It's demanding a policy pivot, mandatory K-9 training for all integrated teams, no opt-outs based on gender. His gaze held hers, steady but probing. Your role in this, intentional? Eleanor straightened, her hands flat on the table, feeling the cool grain of wood. Sir, it's organic. The sim exposed gaps. The petition fills them with data. She slid her compiled dossier forward, deployment stats, handler efficacy reports, anonymized accounts from the field where Rex's alerts had turned the tide without fanfare. Dr. Reyes projected the latest, a heat map of audit feedback, red clusters around Harlan's cited delays fading against green spikes in detection yields. Chief Harlan, your concerns on exfil risks. Address the panel. Harlan leaned into the mic, voice gravel steady over the room's hush. Integration's noble, but doctrines forged in blood. A K9 injury mid-op pulls resources. Handler sidelined, team exposed. We've lost good men to less. He nodded to a redacted file, pages rustling as he passed it. The coordinator countered softly, but losses dropped 15% with K9 assets per global metrics. Vasquez's record bears it out. Rex shifted at the mention, his ears pricking, a low huff escaping as if underscoring the point. The debate coiled tighter, questions firing like controlled pairs, efficacy in asymmetric threats, cultural perceptions in joint ops. The petition's call for reformed quals emphasizing handler K9 bonds over rigid sweeps. Elena fielded most, her responses clipped and evidence-backed. The 2020 Raqqa cache sniff that yielded intel on a cell, Rex's unerring pull from a sniper's nest in the Kush. It's not exception, she stated, meeting the colonel's eyes. It's evolution. Duty evolves with threats. Harlan's interjection came measured. Evolution without chain erodes all. The room hung on it, the clock's tick amplifying the tension, until Ellis adjourned for a closed session, the panel retreating to a side office, doors clicking shut like latched mags. Outside, the corridor stretched empty, save for the faint echo of boots from distant drills, the fluorescent strips buzzing overhead. Elena unclipped Rex, his tail wagging once in release, and they paced toward the galley for a brief stand-down. Whispers met her there. Lang at a table corner, nodding subtly as she passed with her tray of black coffee and field oats, steam curling in the warm air heavy with grease and bread. "Exo's on the line with command," he murmured when she sat nearby. Petitions hit their desk, full review incoming. Elena sipped, the bitter heat grounding her. Keep drills sharp, no distractions. But her mind mapped the ripples, the child's medal in her pocket, a quiet talisman, the bench's call, now deferred by the audit's pull. Afternoon brought the public pivot, the base PA crackling to life during routine quals. All K9 handlers and integrated teams to the hangar, audit update briefing. The formation assembled swiftly, over 100 figures under the vast corrugated roof, the scent of oil and canvas thick in the still air. XO took the podium, his silhouette sharp against the backdrop of stacked crates, Harlan at his flank. The audit's recommending changes. Expanded K9 quals for all genders, with Vasquez's protocols as model. Murmurs rippled, boots shifting on the concrete. But this isn't Defiance's win, it's Unity's. Question through channels, act within. Eyes turned to Elena in the front rank, Rex at perfect heel, his black coat gleaming under the lights. Harlan's gaze met hers briefly, a nod buried in concession. No warmth, but acknowledgement. The brief dispersed into side conversations, operators clustering around handlers, voices low but fervent. Reyes approached, clapping her shoulder lightly. "You lit the path, LT. Command's auditing nationwide now." Elena nodded, clipping Rex's lead amid the shuffle. Team effort. But as they moved out, the weight settled. Her sim defiance, once a solitary stand, now a catalyst, etching reforms into policy drafts. Harlan caught her at the hangar's edge, the wind whistling through gaps in the panels. "Didn't see it coming full scale," he admitted, voice low over the distant thump of rotors. "But it's right. Prove it in the field." She saluted, the motion crisp, feeling the shift like a cleared breach, air freer but laced with vigilance. Twilight pulled her to the bench at last, the wood warmed faintly by the dying sun, waves crashing below in relentless cadence. Rex settled close, his head on her boot, the faint warmth of him cutting the coastal chill. She drew the medal from her pocket, turning it in the light, the paw-print trident catching glints like a signal flare. The audit's close loomed, final vote tomorrow. But this moment held the core, loyalty's quiet forge, from dog to handler to ranks, rippling toward legacies unspoken. The Pacific stretched endless, its roar a vow that integrity, once voiced, reshaped the horizon. If this story already has your respect, hit the like button. It helps the story of Elena Vasquez reach those who still believe in honor. The audit's final session convened under a sky cleared to steel blue. The winter sun angling low through the conference room's blinds, casting striped shadows across the table like range markers. Elena arrived precisely at 0745, her folder secured under one arm, Rex's lead coiled in her hand. The air inside carried the faint, acrid bite of overheated projectors and the earthy undertone of damp wool from the panel's overcoats shed against the building's reluctant heat. Commander Ellis presided from the head, his notes aligned with military precision, while the expanded roster, Dr. Reyes, the K-9 coordinator, the two Nest Dallas colonels and Harlan, filled the seats, their postures rigid as stacked rifles. Rex settled at Elena's feet, his harness clipped to the leg of her chair, his steady breathing a subtle rhythm beneath the room's tension. Ellis opened without preamble, his voice cutting the hush like a knife through canvas. Panels deliberated. The petition and testimonies compel action. K-9 integration protocols revised. Mandatory cross-training for all handlers, gender-neutral assignments, with Vasquez's sim as doctrinal benchmark. He slid a draft memo across the table, its pages crisp and stamped provisional. Chief Harlan, your input on implementation? Harlan leaned forward, fingers steepled, the lines of fatigue etched deeper from the overnight sessions. Aye, sir. Phased rollout, quals updated by Q2. Field tests in mixed teams. No shortcuts, efficacy first. His gaze flicked to Elena, holding a beat longer than protocol, acknowledgement woven into the concession. Dr. Reyes nodded, her tablet chiming softly as she logged the consensus. This addresses the gaps. Discretion within chain, bonds as assets, not variables. Elena absorbed it, her hand resting lightly on Rex's head, feeling the warmth of his fur through her fingers. The revisions echoed her stand. The sim's defiance reframed as catalyst, the petition's voices distilled into policy ink. Questions followed in clipped sequence, timelines for base-wide quals, metrics for theater rollout, safeguards against over-reliance on K-9 alerts. She contributed evenly, citing Rex's logs from the Kush deployments, where his precision had shaved minutes off threat assessments. The bond amplifies, sir, not complicates. In Raqqa, it turned intel from guesswork to certainty. The colonels noted it, pens scratching, the room's air thickening with the weight of precedent set. Adjournment came at 1100, the gavel's rap echoing like a cleared chamber. Ellis rose, extending a hand. Lieutenant, your testimony tipped the scales. The teams evolve because of it. Harlan followed suit, his grip firm, brief. Proved your point, Vasquez. Lead the first qual cycle. She saluted, the motion crisp, Rex rising in tandem as they exited into the corridor's brighter light. The bases hum, resuming beyond the doors, boots on paths, distant rotor wash from the helipad. Word spread through the midday briefings, the PA's tone neutral, but the undercurrent electric. All hands, protocol update posted in ops. K-9 integration mandatory, effective immediate. In the galley, trays clattered amid low murmurs, operators nodding as Eleanor passed with her coffee, steam rising in lazy curls. Reyes caught her at the line's end, voice low over the sizzle of the grill. Commands extending it fleet-wide. Your bench talks paid off. Lang hovered nearby, his grin subdued but genuine. Rex gets his due, LT. She nodded, the petition's weight lifting like fog burned off by noon sun, replaced by the quiet forge of reform. Afternoon quals marked the shift tangible, the mock village alive with integrated drills. Handlers and operators pairing across lines once drawn subtle. Elena led a full team breach, Rex at point, his nose quartered through the plywood corridors, alerting clean on embedded props. Witnesses from the audit observed from the sidelines, clipboards idle now, the wind off the dunes carrying the sharp crack of sim flashes and the low woof of K9 confirms. No orders aborted, no hesitations. The flow seamless, a testament to the revisions etched that morning. Harlan oversaw from the ridge, his radio silent, approval in his stance as the all-clear echoed. As the sun arced toward evening, the base's rhythm softened, generators thrumming lower, the Pacific's breath cooling the air to a crisp edge. Elena's path led to the bench, the weathered planks familiar under her, Rex curling at her feet with a contented sigh. His fur still dusted with range sand. Waves rolled in below, foam hissing against the seawall, the horizon a line of deepening indigo. She drew the child's medal from her pocket, the metal warmed now by the day's carry, its paw-print trident glinting in the fading light. The boy had vanished into the network of base families, but his gesture lingered, a ripple from the rank's quiet heart, amplifying her stand into something larger. Winters would call her back here year after year, but the bench felt changed, no longer a solitary confessional, but a vantage on legacies built. The audit's reforms cascaded, mentorship programs sprouting for new handlers, female operators citing her sim in calls, Rex's protocols woven into training manuals bound for distant commands. Harlan's skepticism had bent, not broken, into guarded respect. He'd even requested her input on a joint op brief, the chain flexing without fracture. Elena traced the medal's edges, Rex's head heavy on her knee, his breath sinking with the tide. Her defiance, once a risk to career and creed, had sparked quiet justice, institutional gears turning toward equity, loyalty's bonds affirmed beyond species or rank. The base lights flickered on as dusk settled, casting golden pools on the paths, the distant bark of kennel dogs, a chorus to the closing day. Elena stood clipping Rex's lead, the weight of transformation settling light. She was no symbol thrust upon her, but a handler whose conscience had nudged the system forward, proving moral courage thrived within discipline's frame. They walked back, paws and boots in step, the Pacific's roar fading behind, a vow that integrity's cost yielded horizons redrawn, one alert at a time. Subscribe for more stories of loyalty, courage and justice within the ranks. Thank you for watching The Case of the Woman SEAL, returned to the same bench every winter, until a child handed her a medal. See you in the next one. In the end, the bench stood as sentinel to a legacy forged in silence, where a handler's bond with her K9 echoed through reforms, reminding the ranks that true strength lies in the quiet choice to stand right.